Everyone.
Good morning.
Rabbi.
Over there in the corner at the end. Got it?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Ketvach Shvotov. We are learning Mishna's Gittin, Parak Dalet, Chapter 4, Mishna Zayin, Mishna 7. Now we're in the middle of the Mishnah. So, but it's one, actually the Mishnah's one is dealing with the same cases, but different opinions. So we'll just start reading from the beginning. We're not going to elaborate on the two opinions that we did so far. Hamoitzias Ishtay Mishum Shemra, one who divorces his wife because of a rumor of adultery. Lo Yachzer, if he says that he's divorcing her because of that, he cannot take her back. B'shem Neder Lo Yachzer, if divorced her because she made a neder, he cannot take her back. The reason, and it's important that we do have to review the reason because it's going to be relevant to the other opinions, is that in these situations, if he's divorcing her because of the rumor, and the rumor comes out being not true, so again, we say he can't take her, so nonetheless, he cannot take her back because we're afraid that when it comes out that the rumor is proven not true, by that time she may have already remarried and have children, and he's going to come and say that the get was a mistake. If I would have known that the rumor wasn't true, I never would have divorced her. And that's going to start making problems for her and for her children. And the same thing, if the reason that he said that he's divorcing her is because of a neder that she made. So even though, and we're talking about he can't take her back, even if the neder was annulled, because that's the problem. The problem is that he's going to say, I only divorced her because of the vow. If I would have known that the vow is going to be annulled, I never would have divorced her. That's going to go ahead and make problems for her and for her children, because he's basically saying that the get's not a good get and she married without a get. And therefore, the Chachamim say to this person, no matter what, you cannot take her back. If you're divorcing her because of this reason, you may not take her back, which means, therefore, he committed to divorcing her unconditionally, and therefore he can't make any problems later on. That's the Tanakama, that's the first opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the neder that she made was done in public, then he cannot take her back. If the public did not know about it, he could take her back. Rabbi Yehuda has a different reason as to why this man cannot take back his wife, and that is to prevent women from either misbehaving in an immoral way or that they shouldn't be reckless in making vows. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says that if she makes the vow in public in front of 10 men, that's called being reckless and making vows. But if she didn't do it in front of 10 men, then it's not, and therefore you can take her back. So Rabbi Yehuda has a whole different reason as to why we say, under these circumstances, that he divorced her because of a neder, divorced her because of a rumor about misbehavior. He says the reason for not being able to take her back is to actually prevent women from behaving this way when they would know and find out that if the husband divorces them because of that, he will never be able to take them back, even if the rumor was disproven, but she was still misbehaving, and even if the neder is annulled because of the fact that she did it that she was reckless in how she did it. Okay, those are the first two opinions that we did up to now. Now we start with the new opinions. Rabbi Meir says, Kol neder shetzarech hakiras chacham, any vow that needs investigation by a wise man to annul it, lo yachzer, he cannot take her back. V'she'ein tzarech hakiras chacham yachzer. But if he doesn't need the investigation of a wise man, then he could take her back. And what that means is like this. According to Reb Meir, the concern that the husband might claim that divorce was a mistake, that's the problem. Number one, according to Reb Meir, he's going back to the reason of the Tanakam of the first opinion. We're concerned here that the husband's going to go and say that, the whole thing was a mistake, and he's going to make problems for her and for her children. So, but Reb Meir makes a distinction between whether you need a chacham to annul it or not. What that means is like this. According to Reb Meir, the concern that the husband might claim that divorce was a mistake exists only if her neder requires a sage to annul it. The husband could say that he never would have divorced her had he known that a sage could annul the vow. Which means, if I would have known that you can annul the vow, then when she makes the vow, I wouldn't have gotten so nervous about it. I wouldn't have gotten so upset about it, because I know I can do something about it. I can annul it. I can get it annulled. And therefore, that's his basis to say it's a mistake. However, if he could have canceled the neder himself, right, as we discussed we learned previously, if a woman makes a vow, It's possible there's a husband that can annul it. And if she's not married, between the ages of, whether it's under bas mitzvah until 12 and a half, the father has the ability to, I'm sorry, back off. There is the power of cancellation that a father can do on a girl between the ages of 12 and 12 and a half. There's also a cancellation that a husband can do. If within the day that he heard about it, he cancels it, it's canceled. Okay? Now, the thing is, though, that when it comes to cancellation from a husband, there is only specific nidarim that he can cancel. And those are the nidarim that actually would forbid her to cohabit with him. Let's say, meaning it affects their relationship. Let's say her vow is she's not going to cohabit. Okay? And she forbids herself from having the pleasure of cohabitation. That would, of course, interfere with their marriage. That he's allowed to cancel. Or something that causes her physical discomfort, like she makes a neder not to eat fruit, not to drink wine. Those kinds of things that cause her physical discomfort, those are the ones she can cancel. There's specifically certain types of vows that the Torah gives us but to cancel on the day that he hears about it. There are other vows that she makes that he doesn't have the power to cancel it. So the mayor says like this: if we're talking about any kind of neder that you need a chacham to annul, which means all nedarim, okay, then we say that he cannot take her back. Can't take her back because we're afraid he's going to come and saying that if I would have known it's going to be annulled, I never would have divorced her. But if we're talking about a neder that doesn't need the chacham, that means it's the type of neder that the husband could have canceled. He could have canceled it. The ones that affect her marriage, the ones that cause her physical discomfort, those nedarim, those vows, he has the power to cancel. If he didn't cancel it, that means that what? It means he didn't want to cancel it. So therefore, according to Reb Meir, if we're talking about that that's what he means when he talks about a vow that doesn't need the chacham to annul it. The vow that the chacham doesn't need to annul means the vow that he could cancel. So he say to the guy, why didn't you cancel it? You could have canceled it, why did you cancel it? And therefore, under those conditions, if that's why he divorced her, then he could take her back. Because he can't mess her up anymore. He can't say, according to Reb Meir, he can't say if she remarried and had children, oh, if I would have known I could cancel, I would have canceled it. You know, husbands know they can cancel their husband's vows. Husbands don't know whether there's going to be an annulment on a vow from a sage. They can't know that. The sage has to decide if it can be annulled. So he has a right to say, if I would have known, I didn't know that it could be annulled, and if I would have known that it could be annulled, I would have divorced her. But when it comes to cancellation, afara, according to Reb Meir, he holds everybody knows about that. All husbands know about that. You can't come and say, if I would have known I could have canceled it, I would have canceled it. You know you can cancel it. And if you didn't, that means that you didn't want to cancel it. You wanted the vow to stay. And therefore, you can't go making it. Therefore, there's no way to go ahead and say, to go ahead and mess it up. Okay. Now, so that's Reb Meir. So again, according to Reb Meir, the problem is that we say that we're afraid the husband is gonna mess things up. He's gonna come and say the get was a mistake. But according to Reb Meir, that could only happen when the vow is a kind of vow that a sage could annul. But the kind of vow that he could annul and he didn't, that is where we say that he could take her back, because under those circumstances, if she were to remarry and have children, he couldn't mess her up. Got that? Okay. That's Reb Meir's opinion. Now but we still have a fourth one now. And that is, Reb Elazar said, the only asr this one because of that one. Now that's very cryptic, but what that means is, they only forbade, according to Reb Meir, the problem is like this. According to Reb Meir, where the neder required annulment by a sage, the only reason that is going to be a problem, the only reason you couldn't remarry her if you divorced her because of that, is because of the case of canceling. Meaning, according to Reb Elazar, we say a husband doesn't necessarily know that he can cancel his wife's vow. He doesn't know that. And therefore, in the cases where he could have canceled and he didn't cancel, he would be able to show up one day and say, oh, if I would have known that I could cancel her vow, I never would have given the get. So the situation of canceling is a case we're concerned about, because he could say, I didn't know I could have canceled it. I could have canceled the neder, the vow, and therefore he'll be able to mess things up. On the other hand, in the case where it's something he couldn't cancel, and you needed the sage to annul it, there, according to Reb Elazar, he says, a husband would never be able to come back and say, if I would have known, that's what I would have done. Meaning, if he says, if I would have known, I wouldn't give her a get. Right? He's trying to say, if I would have known that it could have been annulled, I wouldn't have given the get. And what would you have done? You would have brought it to a chacham to annul it, right? That's what you're saying. If you're saying I only would have divorced her, I would never have divorced her if I know it could have been annulled, that means I wouldn't have divorced her, and what would I have done? I would have brought it to be annulled. Says Rebbe Lezer, no, you wouldn't. Rebbe Lezer says a very interesting idea. Very interesting. He says like this, I'm going to read it to you right here. Because it is presumed that a husband would rather divorce his wife than have her suffer the humiliation of appearing in a sage's court to have her nether annulled. Hear that idea? Mm-hmm. It's like, again, I don't think it's something that we have an easy time understanding. Rebbe Lezer is making an argument for a woman. Again, especially, let's think about times in the Mishnah. For a woman to go ahead and come in front of a sage to get her nether annulled is an extremely embarrassing situation. It's extremely humiliating. And even though he's upset with her about the fact that she made the net, he's divorcing her, doesn't mean, and he would divorce her for it, doesn't mean he'd still want to put her through the humiliation of it. And therefore, Rebbe Lezer says, essentially, if you say that you're divorcing her because of the neder that she made, you couldn't come back and say, if I would have known that I could annul it, I would have annulled it. Because you know what? You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have put her through that. And therefore, there's no way to come back and to claim and to say that if I would have known I could annul it, I never would have given her the get. You would have given her the get anyway. Because the only way of dealing with the situation is by getting it annulled, and you wouldn't put her through that humiliation. So really, the halacha is that if he divorces her because of the vow, you should be able to take her back, according to that argument, right? But Rebbe Lezer said, nonetheless, they still forbade you, even in that case, to take her back, because we want to strengthen the situation of the cancellation. By cancellation, we're afraid if he comes back and he says, if he divorced her because after she made a vow that he could have canceled, we're afraid he's going to come back and say one day, if I would have known I could cancel it, I would have canceled it. That's the problem. And we say because of that, you can't take her back. In order to strengthen that law they instituted, they said also for the case of when he divorced her because of a vow that he can't take her back, even though the problem doesn't exist there. That's what Rebbe Lezer means when he says, like Asru Zeh, El Mipnei Zeh, they only forbade this case because of that case. The final opinion was really a different kind of case. The final case is going to be a case where you know who made the nether, who made the vow? Not the wife, the husband made the vow. And that's what brought about the get. So Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda said, Ma'aseh b'Tzaydon. There was a story that took place in a place called Tzaydon. Ve'echad she'amar le'ishtoi. There was a person who said to his wife, Kainim im eini megarshech. I make a neder on myself if I don't divorce you. If you remember, if you want to make a neder, a neder means you're making something forbidden. So what do you say? It should be like a carbon. Right? This thing should be to me like a carbon. Just like a carbon is something that when you sanctify it or you make it forbidden on yourself. And by a neder, that's what you do. You say, I'm making this object like a carbon. And the word sometimes that's used instead of carbon is konam. This is what we had before in the Darim. So the guy said, konam, I forbid apples, right? If I don't divorce you. Right? Just want to take a second here. No, we should be a little bit more drastic than that. All the fruits of the world should be like a konam for me if I don't divorce you. He really put himself in a tight situation. Right? I forbid all the fruits of the world on me if I don't divorce you. And then what did he do? He divorced her. Okay. And now he wants to take her back. Could he take her back in this case? No. Yes, he can. Because he made the vow. She didn't make the vow. He made the vow. He made the vow to divorce her. If he made the vow to divorce her, then there's no place for him to say, if I would have known. You made the vow. You did it. And therefore, that's what it means. A person has said to his wife, I forbid all the fruits of the world if I don't divorce you. And he divorced her. The sages allowed him to take her back. Because the reason for the problem doesn't exist here. He's going to come back and say, if I would have known, when you would have known. You made the vow. You're the one who made the vow that forced you into the get. Because of the benefit of society. Now, those words itself don't make sense. They let him come back. They allowed him to remarry her for the benefit of society. That's not why they allowed her to marry her. Not about the benefit of society. The whole point is there is no problem in this case of anybody getting messed up. We don't have to worry about the benefit of society here because he made the vow. He's not going to be able to say, if I would have known. There's nothing to say. You made the vow that put you into the situation of divorcing. Okay, so it's not. So in that situation, it's not where there's nothing about benefiting society there. There's no problems. But the way to explain the Mishnah is, on those words, we've taken an island for the benefit of society, that being in the case where the woman made the divorce, made the vow, why do we say he can't take her back? That's for the benefit of society. That's for the benefit of the woman and her children if she remarries. Because that was the reason why in the case of the woman making the vow, that's where we said the husband can't take her back. Here, when he makes the vow, that's not an issue, and therefore he can take her back. Have a wonderful day. Shavuot Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Is that the bottom line?
That's the